Welcome back to my channel Code Dictator. In this session we are going to learn about Swagger and how to create document with the help of Swagger. So if you are new to my channel, subscribe my channel, like and share with your friends and hit the bell icon to get notifications. In last tutorial we learned about how we can create application with the help of JPA and MySQL and how we can run with the help of Postman. So let's run the application again to understand more concept. So if you see right now my application is running and it is running on port number 9090. If I want to run my application, so I can run with the help of web, or I can run the application with the help of Postman. So in the last tutorial we used Postman to call our get API and post API. So right now I'm going to call the get API and the data is already stored in my database, that's why I got the same information. And when I want to run my post API, so that time we need to specify body and then we can perform our task. So we need to do a lot of configuration with the help of Postman, like we need to choose first method, what type of method we are going to call, and what is the API signature is there, and again what is the request body, or if you are passing any header, so what will be the header. So this part manually we need to configure everything and then only we can interact with our API. But to reduce the burden to maintain all the documentation, that Spring Boot is already providing a very beautiful feature that is called Swagger. So Swagger is helping you to create a predefined documentation. So it is creating documentation for us to improve the development. So let's start with the Swagger. So whenever we are going to deal with the Swagger, so first of all we need to add configuration file, so some dependencies inside our pom.xml. So right now we are going to add two dependencies and that dependency you will get in the description. So to save the time, I copied these dependencies and those are already provided in the description part, so you can get it there from there, and you can choose version whichever the latest version you have. So basically the first dependency is for your Swagger and the second one is it create a UI, user interface. There you can deal or you can with your APIs and it will create a specific very beautiful graphical user interface where you can connect and we can test our APIs. And the Swagger 2 is basically to configure all our setting. So after adding this dependency we will just refresh our application and here right click Maven and simply you can update your project, update project. It will take little bit while and it's done. So right now the second step to integrate your Swagger in application, so we are going to create one config package and inside that Swagger configuration we are going to create right now. So simply right click new, which is class, and in the class package I am going to provide this as like config Swagger config and simply hit finish. It will create a config file for you, that class, and in the config file we need to add two different annotations. So one is @enable Swagger 2, because that just now we added a Swagger configuration, so it will help us to configure all our Swagger. So like from where, like which control I want to add and what type of API and what other information I want to show on my Swagger UI. So Swagger enable Swagger UI 2, and the second annotation, like whenever we are performing any configuration task in the Spring Boot, so this is a mandatory part that we need to add the configuration annotation. Configuration, and this will interact and it will tell that okay, so whatever the class I am going to create, that is basically a configuration class, and there we can create a bean. So public docket product API is a method name, and Inside that we are going to create it as a bean, so we can mention it as a bean. So docket is a builder which is intended to be the primary interaction into the Swagger Spring MVC framework, and it provides a sensible default and convenience method for your configurations. So like in that you can set all the information like how my like where I'm going to search for my APIs and controllers and my model class and service layer and what type of information I want to provide over there, so that I can define inside my this product API method. So let's open that class. If you see, that class is having n number of information, and again we have n number of methods. So basically public API info. So this method, inside that method we can set some extra information, that is we can call as a metadata. So that information we can provide. So meta info is basically like information of the data. So we are going to call that method as well, and that is basically private API info meta info, and in that we can pass like some extra information. So that is basically like we can simply say like return new API info, and these are the other parameters that we can pass with the help of this method. So title, so basically title, what title you want to pass of your Swagger. So it is like my first JPA application. So description, if you want to provide any extra description you can provide it. So this video is created by code dictator. Again version, you can specify a specific version of your application. So like this is my version v 1.0.0, and again if you want to set some terms of service URL and some contact information you want to provide, or license or any license URL you want to provide, so you can provide those information. So here I'm not going to pass any information, just I'm going to pass inside that contact as my GitHub ID. Here it is. So yeah, okay, so we're done with the meta info, but right now this is the extra information of my application right now, but still now my Swagger is not configured. And don't worry about this asterisk, because it's basically like a deprecated method, but don't worry, we are going to solve it very soon. Okay, so in the product API we are going to return new and docket, and inside the docket, so inside the docket we are going to provide some information which is like documentation type. If you see the document here, we are setting some, by default it is implementing an interface documentation plugin. So we are going to set first information documentation type, that documentation type dot, so what type of documentation we are going to pass. So like Swagger 1.2 12 version, or Swagger 2. So Swagger 2 we are using right now, and what other information, so which is select. Again we can set a specific component scanning, so we have the component scanning. So like the similar way we have, like we can scan all the base packages. There I want to set my Docker APIs, like there it will go and it will take references from that. So I'm going to use APIs, and here basically we are going to pass a predicate. So like where I will get my base package, that is basically the predicate. So request handler selector dot base package, and in the base package we are going to provide a base package of our controller. So let me open my controller here and just copy this path of controller, just you can pass here, done. Okay, so the next information what we require now, that is path. So from where it will get all the path, like what the API signature it will allow. So basically that is, we can just simply pass it as a regex, and in the parenthesis regex, simply you can say like slash rest dot star. So it will allow all the signatures right now, and then we can use build, because we are going to build that one dot, and we have this API method, correct, API info. So we are going to call that method, same method, so which is API info, and that is our meta info. So meta info, and now we're done with the Swagger setup right now. Yeah, so let me just check it here, and yeah, so this method is right now deprecated, so we are going to resolve it right now quickly. So instead of API info we are going to use API info builder, and in the API info builder, so that is little bit advanced. So in the API builder we are not going to pass this as an argument, so we are going to pass them as a parameter right now. So first of all we have like API builder and API builder dot. So the first argument is title. So what the title? So title is my first JPA application, again dot. So description, I want to pass my description as well, so this is the description that I want to pass. Again, what is the next parameter we can pass? So as I told you, like we can pass the version as well, so we can say like version. So this is the version of my application, and again contact, if I want to pass contact details, so I can pass it. Contact, yes, and right now we, and the finally once that all the setup is done, so we need to build it, build. Okay, again, so contact is a deprecated, because in the contact we need to create object of contact, so we can say new contact, and here we can pass as a name, URL and email. So some extra information is required right now, so you can simply say name co-dictator, URL, I'm going to pass it here my GitHub URL, and email, so I'm just keeping it as empty right now. So it's done. So we handled all the deprecated method as well to set up our Swagger. So the configuration is now done. Now how to use this inside our application. So first of all we'll go with the model class. We have ticket as a model class, and there we can use annotation, that is a special annotation which is taken from the Swagger @API. So if you see here, the API is present inside your IO Swagger annotation, and there you can pass n number of parameters like authorizations and base path, consume, description, hidden. So value is basically like what the value you want to pass. So like this is ticket entity class, simply entity, and again if you want to pass in description you can pass it. like this will store ticket info. So description is now deprecated method, but no issue, we can still use it. Okay, and basically deprecation means what? This one is present in the lower version, but right now that support is not present in the higher version. That is the meaning of deprecation. But once they deprecated any specific method or any specific class or interface, so they are not removing entire support. They are only telling us like this will not, you can't use this deprecated method in the further versions, but still the current version is support the deprecated method. That is the meaning of deprecated. Okay, so now if I want to specify the use of each and every attribute, so we can use a special annotation which is @API model property, and here we can write a note like what is that property exactly. So like we are setting primary ID of ticket. So this annotation is taken from your Swagger actually. So this will only inform, like we are preparing our own documentation, so we are not going to use Postman right now. We are going to use our own document that is created with the help of Swagger. So this is all about the entity class, and there we can do lot many things right now, but again we will just quickly cover with the controller what annotation we can, like how we can handle a Swagger with the help of controller. So in the controller also we can set API, and we can give the some extra information which is value. This is ticket controller, and again if it's come to your specific method or your endpoint, so that time you can say API @API operation. So what exactly operation you are going to perform, that you can specify it over here. So we'll say value, and like in this we are getting all tickets object. Okay, and again in this we can provide some extra information as well. So what will be the return type, or what will be the basically a response. So we can say like API response, and inside that we can say value. So we have message, we have value, and in the value we can pass like might be this method will return n number of status code. So we have something called status code like 200, 300, 400, 500 in that range. So we can pass this type of status code. So we can specify different status code. So like @API response, and in the response we are going to set like code equal to, and you can specify as any specific word code which is 100, and what is the message with that status code message. And here we can set message like 100 is the message, and the similar way we are going to add another status code which is we can simply call it like adds 200, and 200 is for successful. So like that we can set a different API status code. Okay, so now that API operation and what type of operation we are going to provide and what will be the response, that already set it over here. And again we can specify like on each and every method we can specify their own documentation. We can create this documentation for each and every method. If right now I'm taking as a response body from the user, so here also we can specify our own, we can create documentation for this as well. So which is @API param, this is basically a parameter, and there we can set a message like which is value, and the value is like to take ticket info from user, and again we have n number of parameters like hidden, name, required, and also required is true, because yes, without this we can't set any information. So this will create a document at the parameter level. It will not create a document at class level or method level. So these are like all about the Swagger. So right now we are going to run our application again, and let's see how document is created. Simply right click, run your Spring Boot application. Now it initiated your application, which is running on port right number 9090. So previously we are handling all this thing with the help of our own APIs slash let me take this reference, ticket and get ticket. If I hit this, I am getting my object, but when I want to add ticket, it is not allowing me to add any tickets right now, because it is expecting a body from that specific API endpoint signature, correct? So for that we are using again like Postman, and again we are doing it manually all the task. So instead of this, we already added a Swagger configuration. So simply we can do one thing here. After port number, we can simply add one special type of a message, which is Swagger hyphen UI.html, and then hit enter. Now the documentation is in front of you. If you see, this is like my title, my first API application. This is the description created by code detector, and this is what the message, and this is the creator URL. And if you click, if you see, this is the my controller name, ticket controller, and what the message I given it over here. So if you see my application, like this is ticket controller, that is the message. And again if you click on that controller, it will expand, and here we have two APIs only, which is one is your post and another one is your get. If you see the get API, it will provide documentation for you as well. So this is all the response messages that we are going to get it. So if it is 100, it will get 100 is message. If it is 200 and 401, 403, 404, it will give the appropriate message over there. If you click on the post, so we will get a documentation over here again, like all the response messages are there. If you see here, this is a parameter is tickets, and the description to take ticket from the user. If you see that message is present here, value to take ticket from the user, and the required is a true, so that's why it is coming into this color. So this parameter we are getting it as a required. So how to use this one? So simply we can just click on this document. Automatically it will load whatever the example they are giving inside your this block. Automatically it will copy and it will paste it here. So no need to use Postman and no need to do it manually over here. Simply you can set those information here. Just I'm going to it like 007 a James Bond, and the category is action, like created by Bond, and ticket ID you can give anything. So ticket ID is 007, my bad, and the ticket cost is 1000. Simply you can simply click on try it out, and whatever a specific status code you want, it will get it here. Okay, so why we are having this message 400? Let me check my data here. Categories. Okay, so it not start from the 00, that's why the message error is there. So remove that 00 only, and I can try it out. And here response body is accepted and ticket booked on this specific date, and that is already present. It already stored inside your database. If you see your code, you will see that the API, like the that specific query is executed. And again if you want to check all the get APIs, simply you can minimize it clicking on it, and the ticket is there. So simply click on try it out. Simply after clicking on try it out, you will get all your data. So this is all about the Swagger.